The last video you saw we had that Cub Cadet LTX 1040 we pulled this motor out of, and as well we had that Toro Time Cutter Z5000 that we pulled the engine out of. We've got two same Kohler Courage engines, but in this video we have to go through and do some changes in order to make the engine from that Cub Cadet work in this Toro. So as I mentioned before in the prior video, yes, these are the same single cylinder Kohler Courage engines, but there's some differences in them. We got to take in, the first thing we're going to change right now is the exhaust system is different from the garden tractor. So we're going to remove this exhaust, and as well in a prior video that we did for this, I'll post a video link for that if you've not seen that yet, where the muffler is broken on that, so I'm going to have to repair that in order to put on this one. So we'll go ahead and get started. Maybe you've noticed or not from the last video we did, we've got this motor all pressure washed and cleaned up really nice. See, now in the scope of this video right here, we're just going to focus on getting this engine so it's ready to drop in that Toro Time Cutter sitting outside now. And once this is finished, we'll come back in another video and drop that engine in it and get it started. Now there's another thing that we got to do on this engine. Remember this motor that was on the garden tractor, this had a huge mouse nest under it, and as you can see right here, they've chewed the coil wire here and the kill wire as well. So what I'm going to do to repair this is I'm just going to take the coil wire off the other engine, off the zero turn, and put in place on this one. There's another issue we got to take and check out with this as well. We've got to make sure that the stator on this is going to be powerful enough to run that electric clutch that's on that zero turn, because the Cub Cadet did not have an electric clutch. It was just a manual control mechanism to turn the mower deck on and off. So what's everyone drinking today? I'm trying one of these Gridlock Aldi energy drinks that I've seen. They're only like $1.49 or something like that. Ultra white. This isn't too bad. Here's a tip for you all out there. Whenever you're pulling these wires off, don't grab on it and just yank it off. Most of the time you're going to rip the wire off. I always just take a flat screwdriver like this and pry against it and use the body of the coil here. You have less of a chance of damaging that wire. Alrighty, now I got this. Tell you, they really wire this. I'm going to do this a smart way here. I'm just going to undo this voltage regulator. And just bypass using some of this stuff on here and just do a full swap. Be a lot easier in the end. Still smell some of that mice urine on this thing in different places, even after pressure washing it. I don't know about you out there, but I can't stand mice. They are the most destructive animals out there. I don't know, a woodchuck can do some pretty good damage too. I don't like those darn things either. Here's another thing that you need to take in consideration when doing this swap. When I showed you over here on your 21 horse, I've got this apart right now, you had your fuel pump right here. You notice right here, you got this nipple coming up off that top plate on this engine. That is for your pulse for your fuel pump on this 21 horse that was in that zero turn. Then you come over here to our 19 horse from the Cub Cadet. You see it doesn't have it, but it's got that spot where it would go, because this was a gravity fed system. So what we got to do is we need to pull this off. We need to make the decision if we're going to drill and tap this, or if it just might be easier to swap top plates on this to get around that. So we're going to go ahead and start pulling these flywheels off and get into it a little bit further. I want to do this anyway because I want to replace this gasket that's on top of this engine as it is, because they do have a tendency to leak. When it's all said and done, I don't want any leaks on this motor. There we go. Sometimes those things can be a task getting off these flywheels on these Kohlers here. Where this muffler's broke on this 21, I've got to re-weld and repair this. So quick zip this off before we go any further so I can set it down. Here's something else to keep in mind. This is on a cam for your throttle cable and choke assembly. I'm just going to take a marker and mark this for reference, so when I set the other motor up, I know where it was on this engine originally to copy that. So I'm just taking a Sharpie marker to mark that reference. And that's off. Now we're going to work on removing this top piece right here. You know, as I've said before in some of these videos where I'm working on these motors, is these tops come loose and this top shucks around. That's how it breaks the block. Most cases, one would think with as many bolts that hold this on here, that wouldn't be an issue, but it is. Just like that. There we go. Oh, well everyone, this is one thing kind of cool, me taking it apart this way. Look at all those broken parts down there. Carefully pump this, get this flywheel off. Now the mission is going to be able to get this flywheel off. It don't pop up and land on my toe. That's not going to feel great if that happens. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Oh. Well, this confirms right here that the stator is different on this. See how we're missing some coils here and here? And look at it compared. If I can squeeze in. See the difference in the two stators? Well, my suspicions were right about the stator on this engine. As you can see right here, the stator that was on the garden tractor has the brakes in it. So this would not keep up with that electric clutch. Now you take a look at the one here that was on the zero turn we took off. See, this has no brakes in it. You know, this is just a 15-20 amp stator. But that's the difference in the two. So another reason why I'm just going to swap the top plates for simplicity purposes. Basically, with the brakes this stator has in it, I mean, it works great for just a regular garden tractor. You know, the most you're going to run on it is your ignition system and maybe some lights. But when you run that electric clutch, when you're mowing the lawn that has that current supply being applied to it constantly, you know, say you're mowing your yard for a couple hours, that electricity, I mean, that is 2 hours of pull that's coming off your battery, and this is not going to keep up with it. I'm not going to lie to you, I mean, to be honest with you, I had to work a little bit to get this one off. Yeah, overall, this motor looks pretty healthy down inside there. You want to know what's the best thing about it? It's not broke. I know some people out there are going to probably say, yet. I'm going to go through and scrape all this gasket and stuff off here, and I don't need to bore you with that, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I'm telling you what, that was kind of a chore scraping this old gasket off this. I bet you I probably had a good 20 minutes just scraping this gasket. What that entailed me doing is just taking this razor blade and running the shot vac like so, and just scraping a little bit at a time. That way none of the gasket material would fall down inside the motor. Got a new crank seal for this. This is aftermarket, an aftermarket seal for that, and this is your cover gasket here. This is aftermarket as well. I would have preferred got the Kohler seals and cover gasket, but I didn't feel like waiting 2 weeks to get those two parts to finish this up. Well, we'll go ahead and change the seal out. I'm just putting a little bit of grease on here to I'm just using a brass hammer to get this started. You probably noticed a lot in my videos I use this brass hammer a lot. So it's just in a lot of cases with these small engines we're dealing with aluminum, right? So definitely if we have to smack something to get, you know, a part loose, it's better to hit it with brass than steel. I'll just kind of take my brass punch. See, I also got brass punches too. Yeah, when you're buying your tools for doing this stuff, invest some money in brass. What I do, and I put that seal is, and I just take and push it down to where there's a chamfer that's cut in there, and just to where the top of that seal is right at the top of that chamfer. That way I know it's pretty square inside there. Well, we'll start by putting our cover gasket on now. I gotta say, this motor is really clean inside here, so that's a good thing. I'm impressed with that. I'm gonna take it. You've seen in some of my prior videos on the channel that I use this aviation form of gasket stuff on all my small engine stuff I do, especially when it comes to oil. I've been using this stuff since I started working on small engines when I was 15 years old, basically. And I have found that if I just take and put a very light coating on this, you don't have to gob it on thick. Just kind of paint this real evenly through there. If there's any little nicks or imperfections in this aluminum, you know, through the years with a constant heating up and cooling expansion process that these engines go through, I found if you just put a real light coating of this stuff on here, I have never had a gasket failure. Lay our gasket down. You can see something else too, that this aviation sealer is kind of sticky in a way. It does help hold your gasket in place upon assembly, which is another thing that I like about it, because there's nothing more irritating when you're trying to put a sump assembly again in your gasket if it slips on you. Some people glue them down. You can do that also. Alrighty. Now as well, I'll just take and put a very light coating on the outside here, all the way around. I know it takes you a little bit of extra time to do this, but you know, if you're doing engine work like this, why would you be in a hurry? And something else too, being alone, these engines are known for oil leaks. I can honestly say too, when I've replaced these gaskets on these Courage single cylinder Courage engines, I've also never had a leak on these. I know the manufacturers say you don't need to use this stuff on their gaskets. Well, I really don't care what the manufacturers say. Now for putting any of this together, I just got some regular cam lube. I'm just going to take and coat my cam gears. like so. Just so it's not a dry startup. Once we get this up and going again, there's a little bit of cushion on those gears. Same thing, put a little bit of lubricant on this guy here, and as well I'm putting it on the governor oil pump gear. See, I'm putting oil right here on the main journal as well. Never put these together on a dry journal. Sure everything's all lubed up good. To slip this inside. One more final check that I would recommend doing right here is where you got this pulse line for your fuel pump right here. Take and run some carburetor cleaner, brake cleaner through there just to make sure it's clear. Yep, I'd say it's clear. I'm going to run all these down. Now when you torque these down, I just work back and forth in the next pattern. And torque all these to specification. Well, as you can see, there's a reason why there's going to be a part 3 on this. It is quite a bit of work swapping stuff over like this in a way. Alrighty, that's pinched. Laying all this electrical nonsense back down. There's that lays down there like so. Oopsie. Taking set our air gap on our coil. Next step. So, if you've never done a conversion like this before, just looking at it, it's probably a little more complicated and more work than what you thought, isn't it? But the end result will be when it's in the zero turn and running, and it's a usable zero turn again. Alright, I gotta set the gap on this coil. Just gonna use the business card trick. If you don't have feeler gauges, this works. Just let it suck in like that, and we'll torque it down. Lay this on its side. Because I've got to change this assembly, I realized, on it in order to run our new fuel pump assembly on. Don't need that one. I know a lot of people are probably questioning why I'm even wasting my time with this Kohler Courage. Well, this is something I'm planning on selling. And a lot of times people don't like it when you do motor swaps on different things, especially this newer equipment, they tend to have a better resale value in a way if they still have the original motors in them, and you know, especially if they run good. So that's my reason for doing this. Not an easy engine swap, even though it's the same motor, isn't it? This is another thing that can be annoying on these stupid motors, is this bracket they got here that holds that pump there like so. There we go. Now I gotta take and put my pulse line in there. There we go. I'm gonna change that pulse line too. I'm not happy with that. You ever notice I say a lot in my videos, you know, I'm not happy with that? I don't want to give the impression off that I'm never happy. I'm just not happy when something's not right. This white lithium grease works good for sliding hoses on. There we go. All right, now we got one more fuel line we got to replace here. So let's do this one. A lot easier doing this now. Good idea to replace these fuel lines, being this is underneath the blower shroud. And if it has a leak, how are you going to know? Unless you have a ball of fire under the hood. I've seen that happen before. It's pretty exciting. It's like that. Well, we're getting closer on this engine now. So now, the next step, what we're going to do, got the wires all laid in here like so. Voltage regulator down there is hooked up. So I want to spin this thing around, and we're going to take and replace the valve cover gasket, but while we're right here too, we're going to adjust the valves on it as well. These 10mm bolts out. Y'all are getting to see firsthand what a dumb engine design these Kohler Courage engines are. I mean, this valve cover design is absolutely terrible. Nice and clean in there, I'll give it that though. Yeah, I'm glad we're changing this gasket on here, because I have pretty good reason to believe this would have leaked. Peel that off like so. Now we'll go ahead and roll this thing over, and we're going to set the valve lash on this. There's compression right there. You got top dead center. There we go. Top dead center. The specs on this says the intake's at 5 and the exhaust is 7. I know there's a lot of videos out there on doing valves, and this is how I do it. You can do it this way if you want, or not. You can do it a different way. But what I do is, like you saw, I roll it over till it's top dead center. And I know Briggs has a goofy thing. Well, then once you get top dead center, you roll it down 1/4 of an inch, and I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make a difference when you do that. It's just like on a small block Chevy. It's the same principle. Get that piston up at top dead center, then you adjust your valves. Now, see, I'm at top dead center, so I got this loose. So what I do is take and run that down a little bit till I got just a light drag. Then I'll run this Torx bit down. I guess I'm more of a non-nonsense approach on doing this stuff. See, I've been doing this stuff for 30 years and never had an issue doing it the way I'm doing it. And if I've been doing it wrong for 30 years, well, you know what? I've not had any engines blow up because I adjusted the valves wrong. There we go right there. This is a light drag on your intake. Now we're going to go over here and do the exhaust. And that exhaust is tight right now. Where is it at? Just for the heck of it, we'll check it. It's a tight 6, so we're just going to open it up a little bit and be done with it. Loosen that lock nut. Again, I'll just slide my feeler gauge in here, get it down where I want this so it's a loose fit. Lock that lock nut down. Just like that. And we got 7 thousandths right there. We got a loose 5. See, and we're all done. No nonsense. All right, now the valves are done. Now we're going to go ahead and replace our valve gasket. And again, I got my aviation sealer, this light coat. Light coat on your gasket surface. Which this does help out too, because these gaskets, they're kind of funny in a way. Sometimes they like to slide around when you're trying to install them, and this definitely helps with that. Let's stick this on here. What I'll do to help this is I'll just take and stick a bolt in here like so to help locate it. This is another tip that I do. Now I'll go ahead and brush some of this on the other side. This is a cork gasket. Cork gaskets usually seal up pretty decent as long as the gasket surfaces are clean. But you know, I found this works really well. The aviation sealer on the cork. And especially too, these single cylinder Courages here, they are known for valve cover gasket leaks. And I've probably done at least 50 valve cover gaskets on these engines, and you're seeing the exact way how I have done them, and I have never had one come back that was leaking oil. All right, now we'll go ahead and start popping this on. So kind of in a way, when you do this, you got to be quick hand jack. So I'll just transfer that like so, like that, and get it started. If you don't like getting this stuff on your fingers, get yourself some latex gloves. I normally wear those when I'm doing this, but I just didn't feel like grabbing a pair at the moment, you know what I mean? I just take and run it down until it stops like that with my 3/8 impact. Is I'll come back with a 1/4 inch ratchet and I'll snug it down the rest of the way with a 1/4 inch, just like this. Now after this sits and cures for 24 hours, it's not going to leak. Put my spark plug back in here. Now we've got one more seal to do on this. We're going to take and change the PTO seal on the bottom of this, and after that's done, I'm going to have to go over and play Muffler Man and repair that muffler that's broke on this. Then we'll put that on and put the cover back on this, and it's done. Be ready for installation. So let's go ahead and flip this fellow over and get that seal done real quick. And y'all want to see a cool trick for taking out a seal on the bottom? Check this out. This is just a regular general construction screw. Let's get in and get it started like that. It got me just a regular crowbar like so. Watch this. I can get a way to hold on here, hold the dang motor. It's a little easier to do when it's in the machine. There we go. There we go, now it's moving. There, just like that. Pretty cool, huh? And put our new seal in. After I clean up my mess. Now you want to be careful. You don't want to go down too far when you put that seal in, because you got an oil feed hole there. You don't want to plug that off. Just taking, putting a little bit of grease on the lip of this seal, just so it's not dry before I install that in there. Let me see if I can push that in. Get it in my fingers pretty good. Oh, all right, now I just got to tap that in. Use a brass punch when installing this seal, folks. And I'm just putting this seal in so it's just right to the top of that chamfer that's cut from the factory in there. And I know I'm pretty straight. There we have it. All right, well, we just replaced the 2 seals and the gasket that are most likely prone to leak on this Kohler Courage. So I'm going to go over and play Muffler Man next and weld up this muffler, and we'll get this put back on here and put the blower shroud on, and we're done. There, the muffler is all welded up where that flange broke there, and she's ready to go on the engine now. Now we'll go ahead and bolt the muffler on. I take and put a little bit of anti-seize on these bolts before I put them in. It's never fun when you break exhaust bolts off in a block. Figure to make this easier for the next guy, or even me, if I ever have to remove the muffler again for some reason. So wearing gloves because that muffler's still kind of warm from welding it. I need to burn my nubbins off here. Well, there's our muffler. Now I'll take and throw the starter up on here. Next, see, I'm using the starter here off the 0 turn as well. I'm putting everything back where the alignment marks are, so we should not have any issues with any starter alignment issues, because sometimes you gotta adjust these a little bit to mesh with the teeth on the ring gear. See, this is another thing I've seen on these Kohler Courages. I think it's kind of a crappy design. How they only have those two 8mm bolts that hold that big starter up on there. I've seen it before with these bolts have gotten snapped on it before, just from normal use on the starter, from the torque twisting, and it snaps one of the bolts. So another great design. I see something got to change right now. See, that's the thing, as I go on with this too, you know, you keep running into more stuff you got to change. It's that's why when everybody says they can do one of these engine swaps like this, if it's the same motor in a half hour, this is why I say they're full of crap. There ain't no way. And as you can see, of all the things I've had to do to this to make it work. Well, that's it for our parts swap and changeover on these two Kohler Courage single cylinder 21 horse and 19 horse. So next question is, will it run? Well, you're gonna have to come back in our next video and we put it back in that Toro time cutter and fire it up. We'll see you later.